Captain Zexai pressed his four-clawed hands against the command console of the Hegemony's Wrath. The massive warship floated silently through the dark space between stars. Its black hull stretched 3 kilometers from end to end, covered in weapons that could destroy entire cities. For 20 years, Zexai had commanded this ship. He had crushed rebellions on 40 worlds. He had made proud species bow their heads in fear. Today should have been no different. "Captain," called his scanner officer, a thin Velkari with large yellow eyes. "We found something strange. Small ship, unknown design. It's just floating there." Zexai walked across the bridge on his thick legs. His people, the Korthak, were built like walking tanks. Gray skin, massive shoulders, and teeth that could bite through metal. The other species in the galaxy feared them, and they had good reason to. The Korthak had conquered half the known worlds. "Show me," Zexai growled. The main screen lit up. A small white ship tumbled slowly in space. It was maybe 50 meters long, tiny compared to the Wrath, but something about its shape looked wrong. The lines were too smooth, too perfect, and there were markings on the side that his ship's computer could not read. "What species built this?" Zexai asked. "Unknown, Captain. The design does not match any ship in our database. The metal is not in our records either." Zexai felt his stomach tighten. In his long career, he had never found a ship that was completely unknown. The Galactic Council kept records of every species they had ever met. Every ship design, every weapon, every piece of technology was carefully written down and studied. "Any life signs?" "Yes, Captain. One being, very weak. They might be dying. Prepare a boarding party. Full armor, heavy weapons. We do not know what we are dealing with." 20 minutes later, Zexai floated through space in his powered armor. Behind him came 12 of his best soldiers. They landed on the small ship's hull with magnetic boots. The metal felt strange under his feet, like it was harder than it should be. They cut through the ship's door with plasma torches. Inside, the air was thin but breathable. The walls were white and clean, like the inside of a medical center. Strange lights glowed softly from panels in the ceiling. "This way, Captain," said Sergeant Corks, pointing down a narrow hallway. They found the survivor in what looked like a control room. She was sitting in a chair, her head resting against a desk. She was small, maybe half the size of a Korthak. Her skin was pale pink and long brown hair fell across her face. When she heard them coming, she looked up. "Oh, hello," she said in perfect galactic standard. "I was wondering when someone would find me." Zexai stared at her. She did not look afraid. She did not try to run or fight. She just sat there smiling like she was meeting friends at a cafe. "What species are you?" Zexai demanded. "Human," she said. "My name is Sarah Chen. I'm a weapons engineer from Earth." "Weapons engineer?" Sergeant Corks repeated. "Yes, I was taking some of my work samples to a conference on Kepler Station, but my engine broke down 3 days ago. I've been waiting for help." She gestured to several large boxes sitting around the room. "I hope the delay won't matter. Some of these projects have deadlines." Zexai looked at the boxes. They were made of the same strange metal as the ship. "What kind of weapons?" Sarah stood up and walked to the nearest box. She was so small that the top of her head barely reached Zexai's chest. "Oh, just some things I've been working on. Here, let me show you." She opened the first box. Inside was a device about the size of a dinner plate. It was silver and covered in patterns that seemed to move when Zexai looked at them. Small blue lights pulsed along its edges. "This is a quantum phase disruptor," Sarah said proudly. "It can break apart the bonds between atoms in any solid matter. The range is about 2 kilometers. I built it for my graduate thesis." Zexai felt his blood turn cold. He had heard of weapons that could destroy matter at the atomic level. The Hegemony had spent 50 years trying to build one. Their best scientists said it was impossible. "Graduate thesis?" he whispered. "Yes. I'm getting my master's degree in applied physics. This was my final project." She moved to another box. "This one is more interesting, I think." The second device looked like a glass ball filled with swirling silver liquid. Thin wires connected it to a small control panel. "Gravity field generator," Sarah explained. "It can create a localized black hole for about 30 seconds. The field is small, only about 10 meters across, but it should be enough to stop most incoming missiles. I designed it as a defensive system for space stations. Sergeant Corks made a choking sound. A portable black hole generator was beyond the dreams of even the most advanced species in the galaxy. Creating gravity fields required massive machines, the size of small moons. How is this possible? Zexai asked. Sarah looked confused. I'm sorry. What do you mean? The math is pretty straightforward. I can show you the equations if you want. It took me about 6 months to figure out the power requirements, but once I solved the energy flow problem, the rest was easy. She opened a third box. This one held something that looked like a metal rod with crystals growing from one end. The crystals glowed with soft red light. Reality anchor, Sarah said. It locks the laws of physics in a specific area. Nothing can change how matter and energy work within about 1 kilometer of this device. I made it to stop other weapons from working. You know, like if someone tries to use quantum manipulation or dimensional shifting against you. Zexai's hands were shaking inside his armor. A reality anchor was theoretical technology that even the oldest and wisest species in the galaxy said was impossible. It would require understanding the universe at a level that no one had ever achieved. Who taught you to build these things? He demanded. Oh, lots of people. Professor Martinez helped with the gravity math. Dr. Yamazaki showed me some tricks with quantum mechanics, and I got the idea for the reality anchor from a paper my friend Jenny wrote last year. She's working on time manipulation devices for her dissertation. Time manipulation? Yes, she's trying to build a machine that can slow down time in a small area. It's really hard, though. She says the power requirements are crazy. Sarah closed the boxes and looked at Zexai with bright, friendly eyes. So, are you here to give me a ride? I really need to get to that conference. I'm supposed to present these designs to the academic council next week. Zexai could not speak. He could barely think. This small, cheerful being had just shown him weapons that could change the balance of power in the entire galaxy, and she talked about them like they were school projects. Like building devices that could destroy planets was just something students did for homework. Captain, Sergeant Corks whispered through the comm system. What do we do? Zexai looked at Sarah Chen, who was still smiling and waiting for an answer. Behind her innocent face was a mind that could create technologies beyond the galaxy's wildest dreams. And if she was just a student, what could her teachers do? What could a whole planet of beings like her accomplish? For the first time in his life, Captain Zexai was truly afraid. The great council chamber on Nexus Prime had never been so quiet. 12 species sat around the massive circular table, their faces showing fear, confusion, and anger. The room was built to impress visitors. The walls were made of pure crystal that reached up into darkness. Holographic displays showed maps of the galaxy, with thousands of worlds marked in different colors. For 3,000 years, this room had been the center of galactic power. Today, that power felt very small. Counselor Veltar of the hegemony stood at his place. His people were tall and thin, with gray skin and large black eyes. They were known for being calm and logical, but today Veltar's hands shook as he spoke. We have received Captain Zexai's full report, he said. The weapons this human carried are beyond our understanding. Our best scientists have studied the scans for 3 days. They cannot explain how these devices work. Counselor Thrakha of the Saurian Empire slammed her clawed hand on the table. Her people looked like giant lizards with scales that changed color when they were angry. Right now, her scales were bright red. Then we destroy them before they destroy us, she hissed. We find this Earth and turn it to dust. We cannot allow such weapons to exist. And if their weapons can stop our ships? Asked Counselor Minhai of the Aquatic League. His people lived underwater on their homeworld. Even here, he sat in a tank filled with blue liquid. The humans showed devices that can control gravity and destroy matter. What if they have defenses we cannot imagine? High Counselor Zendar raised one of his forearms. His people, the Ethereals, were the oldest species in the galaxy. They had pure white skin and glowing blue eyes. When an Ethereal spoke, everyone listened. Bring the human here, he said. We must know more before we act. 2 hours later, Sarah Chen stood in the center of the council chamber. She looked very small, surrounded by beings twice her size. She wore simple blue clothes and carried a small bag. She did not look afraid or worried. She looked curious. "This place is amazing," she said, turning in a slow circle to look at everything. "The crystal work is incredible. How do you grow crystals this large? And that holographic system must use quantum processors to handle all that data." The counselors stared at her. They had expected fear, or anger, or at least respect. Instead, she was asking about their technology like a student on a field trip. "Human," Veltar said slowly. "Do you know why you are here?" "Not really," Sarah admitted. "Captain Zexai said you wanted to ask me questions about my work. I brought some of my research notes in case that helps." She pulled a small tablet from her bag. "Though I'm not sure why it's such a big deal. Most of this stuff is pretty basic." Counselor Thrakha's scales turned even redder. "Basic? You carry weapons that could destroy entire fleets." Sarah looked confused. "Weapons? Oh, you mean my thesis projects? I guess some of them could be used as weapons, but that's not what I made them for. The quantum disruptor is meant to help with mining. The gravity generator is for defense. And the reality anchor is just a research tool." "Research tool?" High Counselor Zendar leaned forward. "You can control the fundamental laws of physics and you call it a research tool?" "Well, yes. How else would you study quantum mechanics in a controlled environment? If you can't lock down the basic rules, your experiments get all mixed up." Sarah touched her tablet and a holographic display appeared above it. "See, look at this equation. If you don't stabilize the local reality field, the quantum effects start changing the math while you're trying to measure them." The counselors looked at the equation. None of them could understand it. The symbols were familiar, but the way they were put together made no sense. It was like looking at a map of a country that should not exist. Counselor Minhai's voice was very quiet. "Where did you learn to do this?" "University," Sarah said. "Earth Central University. I'm in the Applied Physics program. Professor Martinez teaches the basic quantum theory classes. Dr. Yamazaki handles the advanced stuff. And Dr. Kim runs the practical engineering labs where we actually build things." "How many students are in your classes?" Veltar asked. "Oh, maybe 200 in the basic classes, about 50 in the advanced courses, and there are 30 of us in the graduate program." The chamber went completely silent. Sarah looked around at all the frozen faces. "Is something wrong?" she asked. High Counselor Zendar spoke very carefully. "Sarah Chen, in your opinion, how advanced are the devices you created?" Sarah thought for a moment. "Pretty simple, really. I mean, they work, but the designs could be a lot better. My friend Jenny's time manipulation device is much more impressive. And David's dimensional gateway project makes my stuff look like toys. Oh, and Lisa just finished a consciousness transfer system that's absolutely amazing." "Consciousness transfer?" whispered Counselor Thrakha. "Yes, she can copy someone's mind and put it in a computer, or move it to a different body. It's her senior project. She's hoping to solve the whole death problem with it." Sarah smiled proudly. "Lisa's always been the smart one in our group." Counselor Minhai made a strange gurgling sound in his tank. "How many students are working on projects like this?" "On Earth? Oh, thousands. Every university has a physics program, and lots of people work on this stuff as a hobby too. My neighbor Mr. Johnson built a personal force field generator in his garage last month. He just wanted to keep rain off his car." The counselors looked at each other. The greatest military minds in the galaxy had spent centuries trying to develop force field technology. This human's neighbor had built one to protect his car from weather. "Sarah," High Counselor Zendar said slowly, "does your species have an army?" Sarah laughed. "An army? What would we need an army for? If there's a problem, we just engineer a solution. Why fight when you can invent your way out of trouble? But what if another species attacked your world?" "That would be interesting," Sarah said thoughtfully. "I've never really thought about it. I guess we'd have to figure out how to stop them. Probably wouldn't be too hard. Physics is physics, right? If someone can build weapons, someone else can build better defenses. It's just a matter of understanding the principles involved." She said it so casually, like stopping an alien invasion would be just another homework assignment. Veltar felt sick. Sarah, the devices you carry could destroy our most powerful warships. Really? Sarah looked surprised. I didn't think they were that good. I mean, they're just proof-of-concept builds. If I was actually trying to make weapons, I'd do a much better job. Better materials, more efficient energy systems, improved targeting computers. She paused. Though I suppose if you're just trying to break things, you don't need to be too fancy about it. The silence stretched on. Finally, High Counselor Zendar spoke. Sarah Chen, we need to visit your world. We need to understand your people better. That would be great, Sarah said happily. I'm sure everyone would love to meet you. Especially the xenobiology students. They've been hoping to find other intelligent species for years. This is going to make Dr. Patel so excited. She's been working on universal translation systems, and now she'll finally have someone to test them on. As Sarah chatted about her professors and classmates, the most powerful beings in the galaxy sat in stunned silence. They were beginning to understand that they had not discovered a new military threat. They had found something much worse. They had found a species that treated galaxy-ending technology as homework assignments, and they were about to meet the teachers. The expedition fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system. 12 ships from different species hung in the darkness, their sensors scanning everything. Commander Velkas of the Hegemony stood on the bridge of his ship, watching the displays with growing confusion. This cannot be right, he muttered. The third planet from the star was blue and green, covered in swirling white clouds. It looked peaceful and beautiful. There were no defense stations in orbit, no massive weapon platforms guarded the approaches. No military ships patrolled the space around the world. Sir, called his science officer, I'm detecting thousands of small vessels moving between the planet and its moon. They appear to be cargo ships and passenger transports. Any warships? None that I can identify, sir. Wait. The officer's voice became uncertain. Sir, one of those cargo ships just scanned us with something I've never seen before. The scan went right through our shields like they weren't there. Commander Velkas felt his stomach tighten. A scan that could pierce Hegemony's shields should be impossible. Did they target our weapons? No, sir. They scanned our life support systems, our food stores, and our medical bay. It's like they were checking if we needed help. Dr. Zentai, the expedition's chief scientist, floated over in her environmental suit. Her people breathed methane, so she had to stay sealed up around other species. Commander, we're receiving a transmission from the planet. Put it on the main screen. A human face appeared on the display. It was an older woman with gray hair and kind eyes. She was smiling. Hello there, she said in perfect galactic standard. This is Dr. Sarah Martinez at Earth Space Control. We've been expecting you since Sarah Chen sent word that she'd met some new friends. Welcome to Earth. Are you here for the academic exchange program? Commander Velkas stared at the screen. Academic exchange program? Oh yes, Sarah mentioned, that your people were interested in our research. We've prepared guest quarters at several universities, MIT, Stanford, Oxford, and Beijing University, all volunteered to host visitors. Will you be staying long? Dr. Zentai stepped forward. Dr. Martinez, we are here to evaluate your planet's capabilities. Wonderful. I'll have Professor Chen meet you at the orbital station. She's Sarah's advisor, and she's very excited to show off her students' work. Fair warning, though. She tends to get carried away when she talks about physics. I hope you brought comfortable shoes. The transmission ended. Commander Velkas looked at his crew. They're treating this like a school visit. Sir, said the science officer, 3 small ships are approaching. No weapons detected, but their hulls are made of materials I can't identify. The human ships were sleek and white, like Sarah's vessel had been. They moved with impossible grace, seeming to slide through space without any visible propulsion. When they docked with the expedition ships, the humans who came aboard were all smiling and friendly. Professor Chen was a small woman with bright eyes and graying black hair. She wore simple clothes and carried a bag full of data tablets. She did not look like someone who commanded planet-killing weapons. So wonderful to meet you all, she said as she shook hands with each alien. Sarah told me about your interest in our work. I brought some examples of what our students have been building lately. She led them through the human orbital station. The walls were covered with displays showing research projects. Commander Velkas stopped in front of one that showed a device he recognized. This is a matter converter, he said slowly. It can change any element into any other element. Oh yes, that's Tommy's freshman project. Bright kid. He built it to turn asteroid rock into useful metals. The design is a bit crude, but it works. Professor Chen smiled. He's working on something much more interesting now. A device that can create new types of matter that don't exist in nature. Dr. Zentai's suit made a whistling sound as she tried to breathe. Impossible matter? Well, matter that follows different rules. Jimmy figured out how to make atoms that are held together by forces we invented instead of the normal ones. The applications are endless. They continued through the station. Every display showed devices that should have taken centuries to develop. Students had built machines that could control time, bend space, and create pocket dimensions. They treated these inventions like art projects. Here's my favorite, Professor Chen said, stopping in front of a display showing a small silver cube. Lisa made this for her art class. It's a universe generator. A what? Commander Velkas whispered. It creates tiny universes inside itself. Each one is about the size of a marble, but they're complete with their own stars and planets. Lisa uses them to make sculptures. She says regular matter is too boring. The expedition members followed Professor Chen in stunned silence. They passed through laboratories where students worked on projects that violated everything they thought they knew about physics. In one room, a young man was building a machine that could reach into parallel dimensions. In another, a girl was teaching a computer how to think faster than light, Professor, Dr. Zentai managed to say. How do your students learn to build these things? Oh, we start them young. Basic quantum mechanics in elementary school, advanced physics in high school. By the time they get to university, they're ready for the real challenges. Professor Chen opened a door marked Undergraduate Workshop. Here, let me show you. Inside, 20 students sat at workbenches covered with tools and half-built devices. They looked up as the aliens entered, their faces lighting up with curiosity. Everyone, we have visitors, Professor Chen announced. These are researchers from other worlds. Why don't you show them what you're working on? A young woman held up a device that looked like a metal flower. I'm building a star in a bottle, she said proudly. It's for my astronomy class. We're supposed to study stellar formation, so I thought I'd just make one and watch how it develops. Boy at the next table waved them over. Check this out, I'm making a gravity gun. It can grab objects from up to a kilometer away and pull them toward you. I got the idea from a video game. Another student was working on something that looked like a crystal ball filled with swirling colors. Personal shield generator, he explained. It creates a force field around the user that can stop almost anything. I made it for my girlfriend because she's always bumping into things. Commander Velkas watched the students work. They were young, maybe barely adults by human standards. They chatted and laughed as they built devices that could reshape reality. One girl was casually adjusting a machine that could apparently slow down time. Another boy was testing a helmet that let him control objects with his thoughts. This is just the undergraduate workshop, Professor Chen said cheerfully. Wait until you see what the graduate students are doing, and the professors have some really exciting projects going. Dr. Kim just finished building a machine that can reach into the past and change small events, and Dr. Thompson's team is working on a way to step outside the universe entirely. Dr. Zentai's breathing apparatus was making alarmed beeping sounds. Professor Chen, do your people understand what they're creating? Professor Chen looked puzzled. Of course. They're pushing the boundaries of knowledge. That's what education is for. We want our students to dream big and then figure out how to make their dreams real. But these technologies could be used as weapons. I suppose they could, Professor Chen admitted. But why would anyone want to? If you have a problem, you solve it. If someone is causing trouble, you find a way to help them stop. Violence is just a failure of imagination. She led them to a window that looked down at Earth. The blue and green world turned slowly beneath them. Peaceful and beautiful. Our students learn to create because creating is wonderful, Professor Chen said softly. They build impossible things because impossible things are interesting. And they share their knowledge because knowledge is meant to be shared. Commander Velkas stared at the planet below. Somewhere down there, millions of humans were working on projects that could change the galaxy forever. They built reality-warping devices as homework. They created universe-ending weapons as art projects. And they did it all with the innocent joy of children playing with toys. For the second time in a week, he was terrified, not of humanity's weapons, but of their dreams. What did you do with a species that could remake the universe and thought it was just another day at school? Dr. Zentai floated beside Commander Velkas as they walked across the MIT campus. The human buildings were made of red brick and looked very old, but the air hummed with energy from devices that shouldn't exist. Students hurried past, carrying backpacks and talking excitedly about their projects. I still cannot believe this is real, Dr. Zentai whispered through her suit's communication system. Professor Chen walked ahead of them, pointing out different buildings. Over there is the quantum mechanics lab. That dome houses our particle accelerator, though it's pretty small compared to what the graduate students build. And this building here is where we're having today's presentations. You said this was called Defense Day? Commander Velkas asked. Yes, it's an annual event, where our undergraduate students show off their senior projects. This year's theme is Practical Applications of Theoretical Physics. The students were asked to build something that could help protect people or solve problems. Professor Chen smiled. Some of the ideas are quite creative. They entered a large auditorium filled with humans of all ages. Students sat with their families, professors moved between display tables, and everyone seemed excited. The alien visitors took seats in the back row, trying not to attract attention. A young man walked onto the stage carrying a device that looked like a silver briefcase. He appeared nervous, but happy. Hi everyone, I'm Mark Johnson, he said into a microphone. For my senior project, I built a personal reality stabilizer. He opened the briefcase. Inside was a complex array of crystals and metal parts that glowed with soft blue light. The problem I was trying to solve is that current weapons can change the laws of physics in small areas. This makes it hard to predict what will happen in a fight. My device creates a field where the normal rules of physics cannot be changed. Mark pressed a button. The air around him seemed to shimmer for a moment. Within this field, nothing can alter reality. Quantum weapons won't work. Dimensional attacks fail. Time manipulation stops functioning. It's completely safe inside the bubble. Dr. Zentai made a choking sound. The device was a more advanced version of Sarah Chen's reality anchor. This student had built something that could neutralize any weapon the galaxy had ever seen, and he talked about it like it was a simple school project. The next student was a young woman named Jessica, who carried what looked like a metal crown, covered in small antennas. I'm Jessica Park, and I built a thought-controlled defense system, she announced. The problem with most defensive weapons is that they're too slow. By the time you see an attack coming and decide how to respond, it's too late. She put the crown on her head. Immediately, 6 small metal spheres rose from a box beside her and began orbiting around her body. This system reads my thoughts and reacts faster than I can consciously think. If something dangerous approaches, the defensive drones activate automatically. They can create force fields, emit electromagnetic pulses, or generate gravity distortions to stop attacks. Jessica threw a ball at herself. Before it could hit her, one of the metal spheres zapped it with a beam of light, turning it to dust. Response: time is about 3 milliseconds from threat detection to neutralization, she said proudly. Commander Velkas gripped his chair. The girl had built an automated defense system that could react faster than thought. Such technology could make a single person nearly invincible in battle. The presentations continued. A boy named David showed off a personal black hole generator that he'd built to clean up space debris. Another student demonstrated a molecular disassembly field designed to safely dispose of toxic waste. Each device was more terrifying than the last, and each student presented their work like they were showing off a clever homework solution. Then Amy Chen walked onto the stage. She looked about 20 years old and carried a small box that fit in her palm. "Hi, I'm Amy Chen," she said. "My project was inspired by my little sister Sarah, who's studying abroad this year." Commander Velkas felt his blood freeze. Sarah's sister. Sarah told me about some alien visitors who were impressed by her gravity field generator. That got me thinking about the limitations of current defensive technology. Most shields only work against specific types of attacks. Amy opened the small box. Inside was what looked like a marble made of swirling silver and gold. So I built a universal defense system. This device analyzes any incoming attack and automatically generates the perfect counter-response. It doesn't matter if someone shoots bullets, energy beams, plasma, antimatter, or exotic particles. The system figures out what's hitting it and creates exactly the right kind of shield to stop it. She tossed the marble into the air. It hung there, floating at shoulder height. The system also works against non-physical attacks, telepathic intrusion, reality alteration, dimensional invasion, time manipulation. If someone tries to hurt you with it, this device will protect you from it. Amy picked up what looked like a toy ray gun from the table beside her. "This is a quantum disruptor, similar to the one my sister built. It should be able to destroy almost anything." She fired the weapon at the floating marble. A beam of pure energy struck the defense device, but instead of destroying it, the beam simply disappeared. The marble continued floating, unchanged. The system absorbed the attack energy and used it to strengthen its own power supply, Amy explained. The more powerful the attack, the stronger the defense becomes. Professor Chen leaned over to the alien visitors. Amy's always been competitive with her sister. Sarah builds one device, Amy has to build something better. Dr. Zentai was making panicked breathing sounds. "Professor, this device could defend against anything. Any weapon, any technology we possess would be useless against it." "Yes, isn't it wonderful?" Professor Chen beamed. "Our students are so creative." The next presentation was even worse. A student named Robert had built what he called a problem solver. It was a small computer that could analyze any situation and automatically build the perfect solution. You just tell it what you want to accomplish, and it designs and manufactures whatever you need, Robert explained. For example, if you said, "I want to travel faster than light," it would build you a faster-than-light drive. If you said, "I want to be invisible," it would create a cloaking device. He demonstrated by asking the machine to make him fly. Within minutes, the computer had designed and built a personal flying device that let Robert float around the stage. The system can work with any materials and create any technology as long as the physics are possible, he said from 10 feet in the air. And it's constantly learning, so it gets better at solving problems over time. Commander Velkas watched the presentations in growing horror. These weren't weapons of war. They were homework assignments, and each one was more advanced than anything the galaxy's greatest scientists could build. The final presentation was by a quiet girl named Lisa Wong. She carried a small device that looked like a transparent cube filled with swirling stars. "I'm Lisa and I built a universe printer," she said simply. The auditorium fell completely silent. Even the human audience seemed impressed. "The problem I wanted to solve was resource scarcity. If you need something that doesn't exist, you have to either make it or find it somewhere else. But what if you could just create a place where it already exists?" Lisa held up the cube. Inside, tiny galaxies spun and glowed. This device creates pocket universes with whatever properties you need. Want a universe where gold is as common as dirt? Done. Need a place where the speed of light is different? Easy. Want a dimension where magic works instead of physics? Just specify the parameters. She pressed a button on the side of the cube. A small portal opened in the air beside her, and she reached through it to pull out a handful of what looked like pure light formed into solid matter. "I made this in a universe where photons behave like clay," she explained. "Each pocket dimension is about the size of a small planet, but you can make as many as you want. I've created about 50 so far, mostly for art projects." Dr. Zentai's environmental suit was making alarmed beeping sounds. Lisa had just demonstrated the ability to create universes on demand. She could build realities with any rules she wanted, and she used this godlike power to make art supplies. As the presentations ended and the students gathered their devices, Professor Chen turned to the alien visitors. "So, what did you think? Pretty impressive work for undergraduate students, don't you think? Wait until you see what our graduate students are presenting next month. They're working on some really exciting projects." Commander Velkas couldn't speak. He had just watched 20-year-old humans casually demonstrate technologies that could reshape the galaxy. They had built universe creators, reality controllers, and problem-solving machines that could design anything imaginable. And they did it all for school grades. As they walked out of the auditorium, past students chatting about their projects like they were discussing the weather, Commander Velkas finally understood the true terror of humanity. They didn't build weapons because they wanted to fight. They built impossible things because they thought it was fun, and that made them the most dangerous species in the universe. The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been going on for 18 hours. The great chamber on Nexus Prime buzzed with nervous energy as representatives from every major species argued, pleaded, and demanded answers. The crystal walls seemed to vibrate with the tension in the room. High Counselor Zendar stood at the center, his forearms spread wide for silence. His ancient face showed more worry than anyone had ever seen before. "We have heard the reports from Earth," he said, slowly. "We have seen the recordings, we have analyzed the data. Now we must decide what to do about humanity." Counselor Thraka of the Saurian Empire slammed her clawed hand on the table. Her scales were bright red with anger. "The answer is obvious. We destroy them before they destroy us. One planet against the entire galaxy. The choice is simple." "And how do you propose we do that?" asked Counselor Minhai from his water tank. "Their students build reality anchors as homework assignments. Their children create universe generators for art class. What weapons do we have that could possibly work?" "Against them?" Commander Velkas stepped forward. He had returned from Earth only 6 hours ago, and he still looked shaken. "Counselors, I must report that any military action against humanity would be suicide. During our visit, I saw a 12-year-old girl building a device that could move planets. When I asked her why, she said she wanted to give her pet fish a better view of the stars." The chamber fell silent. Dr. Zentai floated beside him in her environmental suit. "The humans do not think like us. They do not build weapons to conquer or defend. They build impossible things because building impossible things makes them happy. A war against them would not be a battle between armies. It would be humanity solving the problem of how to stop people from fighting them. And they would solve it," Commander Velkas continued. "Probably in a week. Maybe less. They would invent something we cannot imagine, something that would make resistance pointless. Not because they are cruel, but because they are curious." Counselor Veltar of the Hegemony spoke carefully. "Are you saying we should surrender to them?" "I am saying there is nothing to surrender to," Commander Velkas replied. "They do not want to rule us. They do not want to conquer anyone. They want to learn things and build things and discover things. The problem is that the things they build could accidentally end our civilization." High Counselor Zendar nodded slowly. "The reports mention that humans consider violence to be a failure of imagination. They believe that any problem can be solved through creativity and knowledge." "Yes," Dr. Zentai confirmed. "When I asked Professor Chen what would happen if the galaxy declared war on Earth, she looked confused. She said that if people were fighting, it meant someone had a problem that needed to be fixed. She suggested sending counselors and engineers to help solve whatever was making people angry." Counselor Thraka's scales shifted to a sickly yellow color. "They would try to help us?" "They would try to help everyone," Commander Velkas said. "I spoke with dozens of humans during our visit. Students, professors, even children. They all had the same attitude. If there is a problem, you solve it. If someone is suffering, you help them. If something is broken, you fix it." "But their technology," whispered Counselor Minhai. "The power they possess." "They share it freely, Doctor," Zentai said. "They publish their research. They teach their methods to anyone who wants to learn. During our visit, they offered to show us how to build everything we had seen. No payment required, no conditions attached. They wanted to share their knowledge because knowledge is meant to be shared. The counselors looked at each other with growing understanding. This was not a military threat they could fight or negotiate with. This was something completely outside their experience. High Counselor Zendar raised one hand. "Bring in Sarah Chen." Sarah entered the chamber looking much the same as before. She wore simple clothes and carried her tablet. But now the counselors saw her differently. She was not just a student with dangerous devices. She was a representative of a species that could remake reality and thought it was just another day at school. "Sarah," the High Counselor said gently, "we need to ask you something very important." "Of course," Sarah replied, settling into a chair that had been placed for her. "I'm happy to help." "Your people can build technologies that could destroy entire civilizations. Does this concern you?" Sarah looked thoughtful. "I suppose it should, but we have safety protocols. All dangerous research has to be approved by the ethics committee, and we test everything in isolated dimensions first, just to be safe." Isolated dimensions? Oh yes, we learned that lesson early. About 10 years ago, a graduate student accidentally created a universe-eating bacteria during a biology experiment. It consumed his entire lab before he could stop it. Since then, we always test potentially dangerous things in pocket universes where they can't hurt anyone. The counselors stared at her. A universe-eating bacteria was mentioned like a minor laboratory accident. "Sarah," High Counselor Zendar continued, "what if we asked your people to stop building weapons?" "We don't really build weapons," Sarah said, looking confused. "We build tools and research devices. I suppose some of them could be used as weapons, but that would be like using a surgical laser to rob banks. Possible, but missing the point entirely." "But what if other species felt threatened by your research?" Sarah's face lit up with interest. "Oh, that would be a fascinating problem to solve. If people felt scared, we would need to figure out why and then fix whatever was making them feel that way. Maybe we could build better communication devices so everyone could understand each other better. Or create technologies that made everyone feel safer. Or design systems that prevented conflicts from starting in the first place." Counselor Veltar leaned forward. "And if we asked you to be more careful about what you create?" "Of course," Sarah said immediately. "We never want to hurt anyone. If our research is causing problems, we should definitely be more thoughtful about it. Maybe we could set up a review board with representatives from other species. You could help us understand what kinds of things might be dangerous to people who don't have the same technology we do." The chamber was quiet for a long moment. Then High Counselor Zendar spoke. "Sarah Chen, on behalf of the Galactic Council, I would like to offer you a position as Human Galactic Liaison. Your job would be to help your people and our people understand each other better." Sarah's eyes widened with excitement. "Really? That sounds amazing. I've always wanted to do diplomatic work, and think of all the new perspectives on physics I could learn from other species. This is going to be so much fun." 3 days later, Sarah stood on the observation deck of her ship as Earth grew larger in the viewport. She was returning home, with a message from the galaxy's most powerful civilizations. "Please be more careful with your homework assignments because you're accidentally terrifying everyone." She had spent the entire trip working on solutions, a joint research committee to review potentially dangerous projects, cultural exchange programs so humans could learn what other species considered frightening, and maybe most importantly, a universal translation system that could help everyone communicate better. As her ship entered Earth's atmosphere, Sarah smiled. This was going to be the best thesis project ever. How to convince an entire planet of reality-warping inventors to be more considerate of their galactic neighbors. The engineering challenges alone would keep her busy for years. Behind her, in space stations scattered across the galaxy, alien civilizations held their breath and hoped that humanity's greatest invention would not be the solution to the problem of other species existing. But knowing humans, they would probably find a way to solve that problem too, and somehow make everyone happier in the process, which was, depending on your perspective, either the most wonderful or most terrifying thing imaginable. The galaxy had learned to fear weapons. Now it had to learn to live with the people who created them, not because they wanted to fight, but because they thought the universe could always be a little bit better. And perhaps in the end that was not such a bad thing to be afraid of.